thingy. Let's see here. What's on my Word doc today? I'm very professional. I'm a very professional person. The Babka experiment. You may remember that my last video was about Shokupan. And so that went pretty well, right? So I had this thought that I could take Shokupan and a Babka and combine them together into one thing, right? It seems like a good idea. I mean, a Babka is basically like a cinnamon roll, but it comes in two varieties as far as I could tell. I guess you could put anything in there, but cinnamon and sugar is pretty popular, and chocolate is really popular. I think there's a lot of debate about which is better, but I haven't tried a cinnamon one yet. I feel like it's probably just a cinnamon roll, but without icing. Maybe the next experiment. It'd probably be better than the chocolate, honestly. I mean, easier to make. I'm assuming you already know what Shokupan is, because I'm assuming that you're a devoted follower and you've watched all of my content so far. Not that there's much, but there is some, and I assume that you've watched it all. You're just gonna follow me to the end of the earth and pick up everything I do. You know, that's not much to ask, I think. And now we're gonna do this Babka thing, and this is an experiment. It's a super experiment, and we're just gonna have to see how that turns out. Basically what I've done is I've done all the stuff for the Shokupan. I'm just gonna kind of zip by all of that. I'll kind of give you a general idea of what I did, but there may need to be some adjustments made depending on how it turns out. If you stick to the end, I will give you my full thoughts on the experiment. Okay, and I always forget to do this, but I should be a good YouTube slave and do it nonetheless. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And do the bell diddly do if you want. I'm not your mother. I can't tell you what to do. I'll try. That doesn't mean you're gonna listen, just like your mother. Maybe I am your mother. Anyway, let's go see how the Babka turns out. No more blabbing until later. We are starting out with a bar of Baker's semi-sweet chocolate. We're just gonna cut this up for the filling. You can use whatever kind of bar of chocolate you like. This is what I like, and it's what I have. Just kind of speeding through this here because chopping chocolate is boring. I've DIY'd myself a bain-marie or a double boiler. I'm adding in 1 stick of plant-based butter, and then I'm following that up with my chopped chocolate and some chopped walnuts. Adding in a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder, followed by a 1/2 cup of sugar. And we're just going to let that all melt together, get all cozy in there. Mix it on up. This might take a minute or so, but just let it go until it looks silky smooth. Just keep on mixing. There we go. Nice and silky smooth and shiny and stuff. When you get to this point, you can cut the heat and then put your pot off to the side and let the bowl cool just a little bit. And we're gonna put this in the fridge for about an hour. Okay, so here I'm just using the Shokupan recipe from last week, and that's 200 grams of flour, followed by 25 grams of sugar and 7 grams of salt. And then we're also going to add 70 grams of plant-based milk. And we're going to follow that with our sweet levain, which is 50 grams of sourdough starter, 50 grams of all-purpose flour, 50 grams of water, and 25 grams of sugar. And I let that sit on the counter for 4 to 5 hours. And adding in the udane, which is the starchy flour mixture that we made earlier. It's 120 grams of water and 120 grams of boiling hot water. Let it cool before you add it to the bowl. Okay, sticking that into the stand mixer now. And we're just gonna let that mix all together. And once it's kind of combined, we're gonna start adding in 45 grams of butter. And we're just gonna break that up into chunks. Just add it one chunk at a time and let it fully absorb the butter before you add another chunk. Okay, so we got this really sticky dough. Periodically, you're gonna wanna scrape the sides. That way that we can make sure that everything is being fully combined together. We're not missing any spots, there's no dry spots, there's no missed butter, etc. So after it has mixed about 10 minutes or so, 10-15 minutes, you can stop the stand mixer, scrape all the dough together into the bowl, and then we'll move on to the next step, which is going to be just a little bit of light kneading, you know, because it's so sticky. So we're heavily flouring the work surface, and then we're going to just dump the dough out onto the counter, and the dough is going to absorb pretty much all of this. It's not an exact amount of flour, just a lot of flour. And we're just going to do something called a slap and fold, and that's where you scoop the dough up and then slam it down on the counter and allowing the bottom to fold under itself. It makes more sense as you do it. And just do that a couple of times until you get this lightly tacky dough instead of that super sticky stuff. And then we're going to shape it, just kind of tucking the bottom under with the bench scraper as we spin it. Okay. And we're gonna let that rest for about 30 minutes on this little pile of flour because it is still slightly sticky. We don't want it to stick to the counter if we can help it. Cover it with some plastic wrap. And we're just gonna let that go for about 30 minutes. Now, after 30 minutes, we're gonna come back and we're going to roll it out. And so what I'm doing here is I'm going to stretch it into a fat rectangle. And that'll help me keep this rectangular shape as I roll. Okay? We just need it to get to somewhere between 12 to 16 inches by 24 inches. And then it'll also be maybe a 1/4 inch thick. So as I was spreading this out, I didn't really think much of it at the time. I just thought, you know, let's put all of this filling in the dough. But what I actually should have done is I should have made less. I believe that I probably made enough filling for about 2 babkas, but I was only making 1, so it turned out to be a bit too much. So when I do this again, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make a bit less, and I'm also going to make it thinner. Okay, just rolling up the dough now, using the bench scraper to help because it is still sticking to the counter. It is still a sticky dough. And don't worry if you get any tears or anything like that, because we're just going to end up cutting this in half anyway. Tears really aren't that big a deal. As long as it's not like a big tear, you should be okay. There, see, I got a little one there and another one down the way. Just keep on rolling. And flour the surface a bit and transfer the roll over to that. It's easier to work with if it's closer to me, so that's why I'm moving it. And then roll it over, and there's your seam, and just pinch it all closed. Okay, now we got this fat log here. I gotta put it into this greased pan. Now this was a mistake I made. I should have used parchment paper as a lift. There we go, shaping. We're just basically gonna be twisting this together, starting with an X, and then crossing each leg of the X over itself until we get to the ends. And that makes this really nice, pretty braid. And just pinch the ends. And now I'm trying to kind of coil it. I should have looked to see like how babkas are usually shaped. I believe that the ends actually go under, but I was too excited or something to be bothered. So I got this weird coiled shape. And now somehow I have to get it off of the counter and into my pan. So I think that the bench scraper is going to help. And it's just a bit awkward, that's all. It's a bit of an awkward thing to deal with this really soft, sticky dough that's covered in chocolate. A little bit of a mess. You kind of have to be brave and just do it all at once, which is what I was trying to do, but I guess I was not brave enough. So I thought another spatula would help. I'm not sure that it did. Just pick it on up and give it a plop in the pan here. Did not go as planned. Just tuck it on in, it's okay. Give it a little tuck in. Okay, oh, much better. Kind of fix it up. It looks a little bit of a mess, but not too bad. And then I'm just covering it with plastic wrap, and for some reason I thought it would be a good idea to put it in the fridge overnight instead of leaving it on the counter. I think I was a bit nervous about the chocolate being left out, but that's kind of silly. It doesn't really matter. It's just chocolate. There's no dairy in it. All right, so the next morning I have preheated the oven to 360 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius for those of you playing not in North America. Okay, so I'm gonna give it a little poke test, and the poke test is supposed to determine if it is ready to bake. Depends on how fast the poke fills back in. Too fast and it's not ready, too slow and you over fermented it. All right, sticking it in the oven, and there it is. Just gonna set that timer for 20 minutes. I'm just following the time directions of the Shokupan recipe. And then 20 minutes later, and we're adding some foil to the top, and that is supposed to prevent any premature browning, because if it starts to brown on top before everything else browns, then it's gonna get burnt, and that's not what we want.
and then another 20 minutes, and here we go. So I was originally going to leave this in for another 5 to 10 minutes after that, but I did smell some burning chocolate as a large pool of chocolate had somehow overflowed from the pan and into the bottom of my oven. And that is an important lesson to you, to put a cookie sheet lined with aluminum foil under your babka. And then I cleaned it out and it was okay. I got most of it. Okay, and we're just gonna douse this with some maple syrup. Usually you use like a simple syrup, which is just sugar and water. But I decided to use maple syrup because I'm lazy and it's pretty much the same thing. And then it's also got that added benefit of being maple flavored. So I know that's like a bonus, really. Bonus maple flavor, maple chocolate. Yeah, that makes sense. It's good. And that just adds some shininess to the crust. So you can see that it's not a very well formed babka because this side is all bread. You don't get any of that chocolate peeking out. None of that swirly action that makes a nice looking babka. I was at Trader Joe's and I was looking at their babkas and it just looks like a muffin. It doesn't even look like a babka, which is quite sad. But you know, it's a grocery store, so. Okay, so here's why I should have added in the parchment paper to help lift it out, because then I was kind of left with dumping it out onto the cooling rack, and that was a bit dicey. It was too soft for me to turn it over, so I had to make a contraption with both of my cooling racks here. Got there in the end. It was a bit of a panic attack for me though. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? But it turned out okay. I mean, I got it right side up. This is like a lesson in what not to do with your babka. I mean, I got some things right, but I was a bit too impatient and didn't think enough. So, another lesson, you should stop and think about what you're doing before you do it. Okay, here we go. That's it. Now something didn't seem quite right about this, but I was just kind of hopeful that it turned out well. So we'll see here. I mean, this looks nice. This looks fine, right? I mean, it looks like it's done, and that's what should happen. There should be these nice swirls of filling inside. Going in for the taste test. It was good. It did taste good. This part. Well, it all tasted good. But, you know, I think it was underdone. Actually, I know it was underdone. I definitely made a lot of mistakes with that one.
My hair's still weird. My thoughts on the babka. It appeared to be fine. So the first couple slices into it, I didn't have a problem. You may have noticed in the video that it sunk a bit in the middle, which I didn't really think that much of, but I probably should have. And it turns out that it's actually like raw in the very middle. Oops. Now I don't know if that is because I put too much filling in or if I just didn't leave it in the oven long enough. But I think this is something we may need to revisit in the future. So I think about 2/3 of it was edible Of course I ate around the raw dough. I mean, why wouldn't you? I don't know, maybe you shouldn't. Paul Hollywood seems to be very adamant that raw dough is gonna make you sick, so... Although I've been told by people that they like the raw dough, and I don't understand that at all. I don't know, it may need to bake longer. It may need less filling. I have a feeling that we're not done with babka. We're gonna have to come back. If you're a brave soul and you want to experiment with making babka and you want to use this as a guide, then do so by all means. I mean, I have made it before, but I made it according to the directions from someone else, and that yielded a very nice result. This time, since I was kind of doing it off the cuff according to what I thought, it kind of needs a little work. But that's okay, because that's, you know, that's what experimenting is for. That's what trial and error is all about. Is seeing what worked, what went wrong, and trying to make adjustments for the next time. That's it, man. Have a good day. I hope you took some vitamins. Take care of yourself. Do your skincare. Go on a walk. Drink some water. Yeah, I think we're ending it now. So, good morning. Oh wait, what did he say? Good morning. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.